Hello and welcome to the Art of Selling Online Courses. We're here to share winning strategies and secret hacks from top performers in the online course industry. My name is John Ainsworth and today's guest is Anfernee Chansamooth. Anf is content strategist, copywriter and podcaster. And his company Simple Creative Marketing is known for creating case studies and epic posts to drive traffic for web business owners so they don't have to. He works with businesses doing over $1 million and software businesses that are also selling online training. He's worked with leading brands such as Bean Ninjas, Systemology, and Hub Australia. He's been featured in Forbes, Inc., Good Men Project, and Huffington Post. And today we're going to talk about why social proof is important, why stories matter, where case studies fit in the funnel, and a framework for creating case studies too. Before we start learning from Anf, I want to mention our sponsor. So today's sponsor is my company, Data Driven Marketing, and we help online course creators just like you to increase their revenue 2 to 5 times through strategic funnel optimization. If you want to learn how much more you could make and get a plan of what areas to focus on, then go to datadrivenmarketing.co/calculator to get your profit increase report. Anf, welcome to the show, man. Thanks.
Glad to be here, John. And I'm going to go check out that calculator because I like the sounds of that.
So, give us a little bit of background here. Why is social proof important? Why does it matter in the sales process?
If we think about any type of purchase, typically the way that we buy as humans, so we're going to jump into a bit of human psychology here. We don't like to be the first to buy something, right? We typically, if there's a new event happening down in town or a new movie's coming out, there's a small percentage of the population, which we call the early adopters, who would jump on that. But the majority of the population will say, I want to hear from someone else who's made a purchase first, at least 1 or 2 friends or people that I trust, or if not, I'll go online and look at an online review and see if there's some other people who've made the purchase first and see what they say, right? So we are by nature reliant upon social proof, or what we call testimonials or reviews, to inform whether or not we move forward with a transaction. Right. And so when we're talking about digital marketing and online marketing and selling courses and these sort of things, products or services, we act in the same way. Why do you think sites like Yelp became really popular when they started launching? Why do we look at Google reviews? Why are they a thing? Why does every local business need to be on Google reviews, setting up a Google My Business account and collecting testimonials and reviews on their sites, right? These are all signals. So I'm actually in the process of writing a book about social proof. And in the research I've done, we look for what we call what I'm calling trust signals, right? And one of the clear signals that demonstrates that a business can deliver on its promise is social proof. It's evidence that there have been previous buyers or previous customers and clients that have utilized the service or product and satisfied with the outcome.
And this fits, it's like the book that I always refer back to about this kind of thing is Robert Cialdini's book, Persuasion. And he did this huge study and looked into what's all the things that cause people to buy. And he found there's 6 different main factors. He added a 7th in later, but the book covers 6, right? So you've got reciprocity, scarcity, authority, commitment, and consistency. And then sometimes he calls it liking and consensus, but social proof. What's the things that people can look for to see, or what is everybody else saying about this kind of thing? And that's so it's one of these absolute fundamental principles that fits into marketing for online courses for definite. It's can you see that other people have got the result from it? What does everybody else say about it? This kind of thing. Nice.
100%.
Right, so, go on, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you were talking about that, I was thinking about when my wife and I were choosing where to travel to as a destination, right? One thing that I was looking at was jumping onto Instagram, looking at photos that people were taking of a specific location. But then I also went to a forum, which is called, I think it's called Nomad Forum or something like this, and basically looked at what other people were saying about a particular city or a particular town, places to go, places to eat, cost of living, these sort of things. And I'm really, because I don't have anyone personally that I can go to that has been to that destination. I'm looking online to find other people who've been there and then relying on their what they're saying about that place, right? So that's just an example of a behavior that I've personally gone through.
And I think everybody could probably relate to this. You go on Amazon, you look for the products that have got over 4 stars. You go onto TripAdvisor or you go onto Google Maps, you look at the reviews. It's just this is a normal way that we work. but it's not necessarily something that we're using enough in our marketing to make it easy for the customer to buy. So it's like, we know this thing. So okay. I think everybody's probably sold now. They're like, yeah, I get it. That's true. Social proof is important. I should be using social proof. So within that, where does stories fit in? Because that's like an element, because we've talked so far about like some stuff around, I've mentioned like ratings, 5 stars, this kind of thing, but like that's not the storytelling. So where do stories fit into this?
When we talk about social proof, what we're talking about is other people, and then the ratings will give us like an indication. Okay, obviously we assume the higher the number of stars, the better the quality. That's the assumption, right? Now, of course, this can be manipulated, right? Anyone can put on their website, 5 stars and put numbers on a page, but the story becomes really powerful because now we're adding the context. Okay. And something that we want to know as prospective buyers, if someone's looking at your course or program, for example, I'll give you a very recent example. So there's a program out there, really popular program in the internet marketing space. I'm sure you're aware of it. I won't call out the name of the person or the course, but they've been at it for over a decade. They sell a bunch of these courses every time they do a launch. And I get about 20 affiliate emails in my inbox of people recommending the course because they're going to make money if I buy the course. But the funny thing that I observed was going into different groups that I'm in, on Facebook and online, are people then talking about, was it actually worth the investment? And what I'm seeing over the last, gradually over the years now, are people starting to speak out and say, they're starting to say things like, it actually wasn't worth the investment, right? But I wondered, why did it take so long? It took literally 5 years for me to find one negative review about this program. And someone actually said it's because within the clause, when you sign up for the program, it actually stipulates in one of the legal sections of that program on the sales page, when you sign, it says that you cannot speak ill about the program, otherwise we will come after you.
Wow.
Essentially, that's what it's saying. Right?
That's terrible.
All right. And I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Because the only people you ever hear speaking about the course are the people who stand to make money by referring the course, right? And so I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. So now, immediately by me understanding that, what do you think that, am I more likely to buy the course? Of course, right? So for now, I'm going, hell no. That person in that program has lost its credibility in my eyes, right? And then other people were saying things like, okay, if you're an absolute beginner and you don't know anything about online business and sales funnels, then this is probably good for you. But if you're you've had some experience, it's probably not worth the investment. You're better off getting a coach like John Ainsworth, right? Like, what happened after you made the purchase? Okay, what was the experience like? Okay, so this is what buyers are thinking. They're thinking, a couple of questions come to mind. One, does this work for a business like mine? Okay, so I run a e-commerce business and I'm selling dog food, right? Have you supported any kind of e-commerce businesses before, right? You need to answer that question. The next question is going to be, okay, is it a good experience? How long does it take for me to realistically get a result, right? If you can't answer that question, you lose something with the buyers. Like in their psychology, they're going, well, I don't want to buy some coaching and it's going to take me 10 years to actually get the result I want. If you can deliver the result in 90 days and charge me a little more for it, I'm more likely to go there, right? And if you can show me evidence that you've worked with clients just like me, that's even better. Then we're going through a checklist of our criteria for saying yes to the purchase. And so stories provide that context. It gives us, okay, what was the prospect or the client thinking at the time of purchase, right? When they were reviewing and evaluating your product or your service or your online program, your course, okay? What was going through their minds when you started onboarding them, like through the onboarding experience? Did they get good customer service? Did they, the things that we expect in terms of a product being delivered? And then what happened? What was the end result? Okay, was the promise delivered, right, in an adequate fashion? So if those 3 things are checked off, now in our minds, the prospective buyer is going, yes, yes, yes. Okay, I'm going to move forward to the next step, whatever that might be, right? And that's why stories are important. The other psychological factor or importance of stories is we are story-making creatures, right? So we grow up with, childhood stories, the books being read to us at school, or we read our own books in libraries. These days, kids probably don't read that many books as we did, John, but they're into the videos and they're watching YouTube videos and they're getting into the Disney stories and all these sort of things. But, even in my culture, I come from Laos and a small country in Southeast Asia. And my grandparents, when I met them, we just sat down and they just shared stories. This is what, this is what our village did. This is blah, blah, all these stories of family members and whatever was going on. And that's how we pass on information. And we're wired to listen to stories and recall stories much more than we are wired to data, right? And I know you're all about the data-driven business, and that's important. But when it comes to selling and persuasion, stories by far will have a better impact on the buyer than just giving them logical information.
Yeah. Okay, that makes complete sense. So we've talked through why social proof is important. We've talked through where stories fit into that and why stories are so important to help people to take that information in and specific things that they need to gain from those stories. What was the person thinking when they were thinking about buying? What were they thinking as they went through it? What was the result like that they got from it? What was the experience that they had through the whole process? Cool. So where do these fit in the funnel? Where do you use these? Is this something that's just like convincing somebody who's right on the edge that they should sign up? Or is this something for, sharing as general content and getting out in front of a lot of people?
So typically case studies are associated with the bottom of the funnel. So that's at the stage where the person is evaluating multiple vendors, right, or suppliers, and they're coming to a decision around, okay, who am I going with? Who's going to give me the best bang for my buck, or whatever it is, whatever's on their mind. Typically, that's a great place to share case studies, okay, because they're in that evaluation mode, right? Now, the question that you asked was where do we use case studies? That's one place, okay, and that's commonly where people think about using them. What I'm going to say, and what I've seen, which might surprise some people, is case studies are effective across the entire customer journey. So from the research stage at the beginning, where what we call top of the funnel, where they're actually, searching for a solution to a problem that they have. They're going to Google. I need to work out, which software should I use for my payment gateway, right? So am I using Stripe, PayPal, whatever? I type a search into Google, and then in that I'm looking for experiences of different people. What are the pros and cons of each product, for example, right? If I'm evaluating different courses, and I actually did this, right? So when I was looking for a LinkedIn course to help me understand how to do B2B lead generation on LinkedIn, I actually looked at 3 different courses, including LinkedIn's own course that they have, which you can get for free. It doesn't cost you money, but okay, who's used the course before? And was there anyone like me, my type of business, type of service, and what kind of results did they get, right? So that awareness stage, or what we call the top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, case studies are useful as well. We talked about, now we're in that, okay, we know we're problem aware. Now we're looking for a solution, a specific solution and a specific vendor. Okay. And as I'm doing that research, I'm looking at, okay, yeah, what are your features and benefits? What do I get in your, talking to course creators here? We're looking at what does the course include in terms of modules and lessons and worksheets and all those things. Now I'm looking at the page and I'm going, okay, but I also want to see some stories here. I want to see real people sharing real experiences. And what some people might not be aware of is, having, say 3 or 5 or 10 names, faces and logos and little quotes on your sales page does help. But if someone is really serious in evaluation, what they may also do is jump into Google, take some of those names and business names and actually search out for those people. And I've actually done this, where I've actually gone and looked at, did they actually implement some of the things that are on this course or this program? And sometimes I've actually reached out to them on LinkedIn or Twitter to say, can you tell me more about that particular course and how it helped you? And I actually had a really good conversation with one testimonial that was used to sell a program. And I actually went to that person and said, okay, tell me really what happened. And they gave me the plus and minus, pros and cons of the program, right? Yeah. Which I didn't get from the sales page. And I might not get by contacting the seller, right? So now we talked about top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, already mentioned. Now, what happens after they buy? Okay, so we can also use case studies as a retention tool. Okay, so one of the best things you can do as a course creator is have successful students. When students complete your courses, they come out and they're happy because they've got what they paid for, and even more if you deliver something fantastic. That's a really great time to go back to them and say, hey, I'd love to feature you as a case study for this program, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to promote your business, put you in front of our audience, and we're also going to talk about the amazing work that you're doing and the experience you had with our program. Would you like to participate in that? Okay. And 9 out of 10 times, those people who've had a really great experience are going to say yes. Okay. And that now, you've now turned that buyer or customer into an advocate. Because what happens is when you publish that case study and it's their story, guess what? They're going to go sharing it out with their mates and putting it up on their social media, and they're going to send it to their mums and whatever. So now you've actually created word of mouth referral through a case study. Okay, so can you see how we've just gone through the entire customer journey, and that's how like you can take one case study and utilize it in multiple places within your marketing and sales funnel.
Nice. And when you're doing that, do you restructure it? Do you have like shorter versions that go in different places and longer versions? And, like how are you actually practically using it differently for the top of the funnel versus the bottom of the funnel?
Yeah, so there's different ways, and it really depends on the way, which formats work best for your audience and how they like to consume content, because we like to produce multiple formats. So we have a long form article version, which sits on your site. We then have a summarized or a shortened version of that, which could be bullet points and sort of, top and bottom narratives. We put that into an email sequence or an email nurture sequence, which is actually used to help sell the course, during a launch process or an evergreen process. Just depends on how the seller is trying to sell the program. We also have a video version, because when we record the interviews with the clients, we're actually recording it like what we're doing here over, we record it on Zoom first. Then we have our editor apply all the branding. They cut it down. They cut down a 20-minute conversation down to a 3-minute or 5-minute snippet video. And that goes into YouTube, goes into different social media platforms. That can be edited and optimized for TikTok, whatever formats you're trying to reach your audiences on.
Yeah.
Okay. And also for PPC, if you're running ads, to retargeting ads, case studies are really great for those, right? So if you've already if you're retargeting an audience that already knows that you exist, and then you present case studies to them in short, like 1-minute videos, 1 minute, I did John's program and I was able to, double my revenue in 90 days, right? If you want to learn more about that, click here, and you send them to the case study page that's sitting on your site. Okay. And in there, you talk about the course, you talk about all the different benefits and features, or you can send them straight to your sales page. It just depends how you want to do that. But certainly we have different formats. And another format that we typically work with is actually a PDF version, because some of our clients we operate in the B2B space similar to what you do, John, and they like to send, some of them are running HubSpot, and they like to have these automated sequences based on triggers. And so, once a discovery call is booked, for example, for some of these agencies, what happens is they then automatically shoot out a PDF version or a link to a PDF document, which is a 2-page summary of the case study with some visual elements and graphs and things that they want to include into that. And they send that out to the prospect right before they jump onto the sales call. Another one is in a proposal. So a lot of our clients send proposal documents, right? So they're doing larger deals. So for them, once they've had the discovery call or the sales conversation, and they follow up with a actual written proposal document, depending on what software they use, they also embed within that a case study. Okay. And they carefully select the case study that represents the type of business that they're pitching to, because a lot of those businesses have multiple segments that they work with. They don't just work with one persona, and so that's what they do.
Nice. And within that, what's the difference between testimonials and case studies? Is the testimonial just like a tiny snippet from that case study that you've got then that's like, a video or a written bit that's taken from the main thing? Or is it like more of a distinction between them?
The way I distinguish testimonial from case study, testimonial to me is a couple of sentences, or a paragraph spoken by the client. Right. So if you ask them a question like, why would you recommend ABC service? They will say, I recommend them because of whatever, and they'll give an answer. Right. Or could you talk about your experience in less than 100 words? Right. And that's a testimonial. So usually it's short, it's punchy. The problem with testimonials, they're great for if you have an e-commerce business or even courses. You can have little short, quotes with pictures, people's faces on them, or their names, or the type of business, or their logo. That's really good for a sales page, right? But what's missing from a testimonial is what we talked about earlier, which is the context. But just by looking at the testimonial, I don't know what were the objections, what were the concerns, what was the buying criteria, what was the situation of the business as before they bought your program, and what happened after. I'm missing all of that information. Right? We advocate using both. So what happens is, as you'll see when I go through the framework, is the last piece of the framework is actually, well, not the last, the second last piece of the framework is to actually ask for a testimonial from the client. Right?
Okay.
And then we embed that within the longer format. Okay. So that they work hand in hand. And we don't say choose one or the other. The nice thing about collecting both is you can then pick and choose where you use them. Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So you mentioned the framework. I know you've got this 7-step framework about getting these case studies together. So can you talk us through it? That'd be great if you could.
Absolutely. So I call this the 7 Ps because each step of the framework starts with the letter P. We start off with, to give some context on how I came up with the framework. So I'm a copywriter. That's my profession. I've been doing that for the last decade. And so I've combined Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey. So if you're not familiar with that, I recommend you go and YouTube that or read it up on it. It's basically a framework that Joseph Campbell, I think it's a psychologist or he studied storytelling and all the main religious faiths around the world and the way they told stories. And he worked out that they pretty much followed the same sequence, right? And then if you look at any of the popular movies that we watch, the Avengers or whatever it is that we're watching these days, I'd say almost 99% of the time they're using the hero's journey. Okay, so this framework here, the 7 Ps, follows that framework, but then also includes within that copywriting techniques and other best practice that we've seen work well for different businesses. Okay, so let's start with the first P, punchy headline. Okay, so now I'm talking about a written format, right? And we translate it to video and other formats, but let's just consider a written format for now. So for a written case study, you always have the headline first. And that headline has to grab the attention of the reader or your prospective buyer. Okay. And so typically we recommend that we use a metric driven result, right? So if you are selling a service or a course, if your course helps, give me an example of a course that one of your clients is selling or someone that you know is selling a course, John.
Language learning, particularly around pronunciation for people where English isn't their first language. Okay,
excellent. Okay, so if we talk about language learning, for me, straight away, as someone who tried to learn multiple languages and really miserably failed, one of the biggest challenges was time, right? For me, how long is it going to take me to pick up this new language, right? I'm traveling to a country and maybe I have 3 months or 6 months before I get there and I want to pick up the basics, right? Conversational language. In terms of the punchy headline, what I'm looking for is, okay, can you give me an indication how long it would take for me to learn the basics? Right, or to pick up the language, right? So if you said picked up Spanish in 60 days, right? Part-time or 3 hours a week, right? Whatever it is. So if you highlighted what that metric was, then straight away you've grabbed my attention. Okay. And so punchy headline. Second P is profile customer. And here's where we highlight the type of student that you're working with, right? So if you're working with language students, or maybe they're English as a second language, or maybe they're elderly, retirees who are have a lot of time and are now wanting to travel because they're in their light years and they want to do that. Call that out. So the first paragraph, you're going to really profile the customer and give us an idea of who it is that actually went through your program, right? Who it is, and I mentioned earlier, sometimes we have multiple personas that we work with or multiple types of buyers, right? So for one case study, you want to have one type of buyer that you profile, right? You don't want to talk about 3 different types of buyers in the one case study because that's going to confuse the message, right? And then you're going to eventually lose a sale, right? So what you want to do, confusion creates negative results. So what we want to do is profile, highlight the client. And this is the section also where we give love to our client. This is where we actually give them their 5 seconds of fame, right? And that's the part they're looking for. It's like, hey, you've given if they're a business, you've linked back to their website. If they're not a business, but they're, whatever it may be, this is the part where you shine a light on them, okay? And then we move to the third P, which is problem statement. And here is where we present the context, right? And we get clear on the challenges and, we're really painting the before picture before they signed up for your program, okay? And I like to think of it as a personal trainer. What does a personal trainer do on their social media? They usually present the before and after pictures, right? And then they put them together.
Yeah.
So you see, here's Anf. When he came to me, he was 60 kilos overweight and coughing a lot. And then, within 30 days, he was ripped and he's, doing whatever he's doing. And so they do that because we can visually see the transformation. Now, when you're selling a course, it's not always easy to visually paint that picture, right? But what you can do is give us the context through story, right? You can actually say, this is what was going on. These were the challenges they were having. This person was trying to learn this language. They had, they'd gotten books from libraries. They bought CDs or DVDs, and they tried to do that and didn't work. Maybe they tried Duolingo app and just struggled, right? These were the things. So you're painting the picture of what was going on before. What had they already attempted, right? And failed at, right? So you've given that context. And then you go to the fourth P, which is process. Now you detail your steps. What is your methodology? What are the key modules in your program? What's the unique magic sauce that course does that everyone else's doesn't? You don't have to give it all away. What I would say here is to share enough of the process that people can see. If they were to not go ahead and buy your thing and were going to go and DIY, right, the solution and follow your steps, that they would be able to follow your steps, right? Because, guess what happens when you share your recipe for success and people start following the recipe? Often there's going to be some information there that's missing, or they miss out on a step, and guess who they're going to go to when they've got questions, right? They end up coming back to you and they go, okay, well, actually tell me more. How did you do that, right? So process, and then we go to the fifth P is what I call the payoff. And this is where we actually talk about the end result or the outcome that was delivered, okay? This is connected to the first P, which is the punchy headline, but now we're expanding on it. And when I say expanding, we're talking about the emotional benefits. Okay, and this is where a lot of businesses get it wrong, because they focus very much on the metric and the KPIs and the numbers and the data, but what they don't talk about is what was that? How did that impact the individual involved? Right? Did it mean that they saved a bunch of time, and that meant that they were able to spend more time on the weekends with their kids? Right? Did it mean that they were able to deliver on a campaign for their company and now they got promoted because they were able to adequately demonstrate their worth to the company, right, or to their manager, whatever it may. So you need to really, this is where we dig into the emotional benefits, right? That's the payoff. The 6P is praise, and this is the client testimonial. Okay, and the question that we typically ask here to the client when we're interviewing them is, if you were sitting at the bar with your mate or at a party or at a cafe having a chat, how would you describe that particular product or service, or what happened, right? Or if you were to recommend this to a buddy, what would you say to them? Okay, in your words, right? And that's important. We want it in their words. We don't want it in your technical lingo, jargon, copywriter language. We want it in the client's words, because other prospective clients are going to speak like your client. They're not going to speak like you, the expert, right? So that's where we capture the praise. The final P, the 7th P, is propose the next step. In marketing, we call this a call to action. And now we're answering the question. Okay, look, I've read through this.
That was P though.
Propose next step.
Yeah, no, the call to action doesn't. That's why it's not called that.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Because when I say call to action, all the marketers get it. But when I'm speaking to non-marketers, they go, what the hell is a CTA? Right. Yeah. So I say, well, this is where you propose the next action. Okay. And so it's the next logical step. After they've read the case study, they're convinced that you're able to deliver on a result. You've helped other clients do a thing, right, with your course. Okay. Where do I go to next? Right. Do you send me to what's the next thing? Do I jump on a call with you? Do I grab your free PDF about, whatever? Do I sign up for your 5-day challenge? Whatever it is, right? That's what I want to know is the next, right? So just to quickly recap, the 7 Ps: punchy headline, profile customer, problem statement, process, payoff, praise, and then propose your next step.
Nice. Boom. Mic drop. Love it. All right. That's cool, Anf. I really appreciate that. All right, cool. So guys, what we've talked about so far, why social proof is important, where stories fit into it, where the case studies fit into the whole funnel, the difference between testimonials and case studies, and the 7-step framework. Now, and if people have heard this and they're like, I need to know a bit more about this, I need to dig into this in more detail, where should they go?
So a common question I get is, can you show me some examples of case studies that other businesses, successful businesses are using, right? Mm-hmm. So what I've put together is we're at 3,300 word document, a guide on business case studies, okay? And to learn more about all this stuff, look at the framework, also learn where do you share the case studies once you publish them, right? How do you get it in front of the people that want to buy it from you? Just head over to simplecreativemarketing.com/case study guide, one word, and then you can basically access that resource.
Nice. So that's simplecreativemarketing.com/case study guide. And we'll put the link in the show notes as well, so everyone can just head over there. And that's just a blog post. It's ungated, no opt-in required for that. So everyone can just go read through that and get their head around it. Amazing. Absolutely. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
All right, guys, if you found this interview useful and you want to get future episodes, please subscribe wherever you listened. And I will see you guys next time.